Forman know that he's a consultant, I think almost exclusively to nonprofits in the community. And so when I heard that I was going to introduce him, I had planned to just do a 20-minute set of consultant jokes. And then they told me that I've only got a couple of minutes. So you're off the hook, Steve, but you can find my jokes on my MySpace page. So Steve has been with Wellspring for a long time. I have to check these dates because they don't seem real to me, honestly. 1981. Steve was a volunteer with Cancer Lifeline, which at the time was run by, it was then Family Services, and from here on out I'm just going to say Wellspring. And then in 1984, Steve decided to do his master's thesis on Family Services. You know, look, I reverted back to Family Services, right? I'm going to use Family Services. And as I understand it, and these were given to me in quotes, Steve, so I'm assuming these are your words, so that your thesis was on the organizational structure, process, and how people interact at Family Services. And I was told that in the beginning, Steve was a little bit skeptical, and again, I'm assuming these were given to me in quotes, that an individual's degree of adaptation to an organizational culture posits a corresponding loss in personal liberty, autonomy, and self-direction. Now that is something a consultant would say. But after he got through his thesis, apparently he concluded that he's come to discard the simplistic view and personal growth and meaning are available within organizations. So, all of you who belong to organizations, give yourselves a little round of applause for that. So with the new sense of hope and organizational meaning, Steve immediately went to Nepal for a year, and I haven't been told what you did in Nepal for that year, but it must have been a centering process, a relaxation process, so that when he came back, he was prepared to take on the executive director role at Family Services. So for 9 months, Steve was our interim executive director, and I think this was 1989, give or take, so this was back in the days, I believe, when we were still giving out pigs and chickens to the homeless on the streets, right? Is that right? And Steve realized that instead of pigs and chickens, what we really needed was huge buckets of sustainable funds, and so he hired Ruth Ann. I think I've got this right. So in 1989 or 1990, Steve was responsible for bringing Ruth Ann on with the organization, but he's never left us. Over the last 20 years, he has continued to be directly involved in all of the big decisions and moves this organization has made. He has facilitated, I think, virtually every retreat since I've been on the board. And he knows the organization so well that it's a little bit like going to a therapist who you used to date. I mean, he's extremely effective, but sometimes it's a little bit creepy. But he's been there all along, including for the most recent big decision to build our building. In fact, we made the decision at the retreat, and Steve was the first one to step up and write a check. So in a very real sense, we are now living in the house that Steve Forman built. He has now added another passion to his resume. We know him as Funk Dog. You've heard him over here playing his Strat for all of us tonight. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Steve Forman.
None of that was true. That was the biggest bunch of baloney. The thesis, well, I have this piece of paper, and the biggest worry I have is that Wellspring discussion. It's not Wellspring to me. It's Family Services. And all those meetings I went to in the mid-'80s where it was, we sound like a government agency and we can't stand it, and when are we going to have a branding exercise that we can really fundamentally develop something new? That was 1983, 1984. And it's very hard for me to speak of Wellspring. Also, that photo is, I don't know where that comes from. No, but I started with Cancer Lifeline in actually 1979 when I look back, so I was 25. And I'm so happy and I'm so honored to get this because I have these four words. I am a vendor. A vendor. I bill for services to Family Services, and I'm thinking, why the heck am I getting this?
We're looking for lower rate.
So, when I make my travels around town, it's always talking about Wellspring. And I noticed that now, notice the shift, it's not Wellspring Family Services, it's Wellspring. But when I think about the early years, when I look over at Jim Potter over there, and I think of 1989, and I think of even earlier, I just have this thing in my heart about family services. Just a couple comments. How many meetings there were discussions at the board when I did my thesis and attended all the board meetings about throwing money away on rent. We don't have any assets. When are we going to get a committee to figure this out? This is 25 years ago. And if you, many of you in the room know that it continued for years and years when Family Services was in the United Way building and then in the Broderick building. And there was this constant, what are we going to do? It happened. It's here. It's really amazing. Early meetings, all about counseling hours. And upping the counselors and how many hours they're going to bill, and these constant discussions with the staff around counseling hours and the business model on billing for counseling. Everything is completely different. Early childhood, the homelessness, the parenting, a completely redesigned organization towards needs that have emerged via good people together in very messy discussions, saying, what is direction for us, and really doing it. And so when I think about where I've learned the most, it is absolutely at Family Services. I can't help it, but I just need to tell you one last story. So there came a day on, I think, July 15th or 16th, 1990, when I walked into a room, and I had this 7-pound daughter. And I was so into it was the Welcome Ruth Ann. And I was both into how cool Ruth Ann was and how Jim Potter had done a wonderful job. We worked together. I had this great experience. But I was also really into this sort of macho thing about a guy with his daughter. And you know how you hold the head in your hands and the body just fits right like this, and you sort of walk around swinging this 7-pounder. That was exactly 20 years ago. And so I mark this wonderful relationship I have with Ruth Ann and with all the management team and many staff people off of that period of time. So with that, I would like to thank the board and all the board members that I've gotten to know over the years, the staff, and I know many staff people from throughout the organization well, and the management team, and of course, a friend for life, Ruth Ann. Brian, thank you for those great comments. Thank you.